Mic check one,
Yo,
two.
get out of here with them weak ass shoes, yo.
Balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep in love.
Welcome everybody to Balls Deep with Devin Jovan. If you're new to the program, I'm your host Devin, and I'm joined by my co-host Jovan. He's no longer beautiful or wonderful; he's just Jovan today. But we're happy to have you guys. Uh, Make sure before we get started to like, follow, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell if you want to, stay tuned with the most recent content that we drop. But we're excited for what we have in store for you guys today. We plan on talking about a little sprinkle of, college football with the Natty just, happening yesterday. We'll get into that. We'll also talk about what happened with Wild Card Weekend. And for the majority of the episode, we'll be talking about our New York Giants and what we, expect this upcoming offseason going into, next season, what happened this season, including with the travesty that happened week 17 with the, Philadelphia Eagles. But we'll get into that. But to start off, the national championship. Uh, Jovan, we know you're an Ohio State fan, and we apologize for, that funeral you had to attend yesterday. Because, yeah, it was pretty bad. I mean, I felt for you guys. Like I said, I picked Bama to win the game. I was rooting for you guys to win because I'm a fan of Justin Fields. But it didn't help that Trey Sermon went out early with, it looked like a collarbone injury. Um, Offensively, it didn't help at all. But defensively, you guys just couldn't hold up. I mean, Sean Wade, his draft stock just plummeted before his eyes because Devonta Freeman, oh, not Devonta Freeman, Devonta Smith. Wrong Devonta. That boy, he was just, every pass that he got, he was just literally like, there was like a circumference of just empty field around him, and
Oh,
that that boy is disgusting. It just goes to show that he can create separation, and he's exactly what the Giants need. But it doesn't look like he's gonna reach to pick 11.
yeah, it was definitely tough to watch yesterday. Um, it didn't help that we lost, like you said, Trey Sermon, his first touch of the game. Obviously we had a few defensive linemen out, two big pieces. So we really didn't look like we could get any pressure. Our secondary has been kind of weak all season, so they got exposed. Um, but I mean, no excuses here. I mean, Bama just really showed why they're far and away from everybody else in college football every single year. Um, and that's really all it came down to. Uh, Ohio State looked like they started the second half off pretty well, like they wanted to make it a game late. Um, and then Bama just kind of punched it home. They weren't done scoring, so um, really it just looked like from the beginning, Bama kind of had this game in the bag. Um, it sucked to watch, but you can't win them all unless you're Alabama. So you know. um, but yeah, it was great just to see my team in the national championship. Um, it was funny because we wanted to get back there due to what happened last year, and we did. Obviously, it just wasn't our year. I do think we had a better team last
Yeah,
year. Would have had a better shot at winning
I
last
think.
year. But that's
Yeah,
last year. This is this year. Um, Either way, it was a great college football season. Um, Thoroughly enjoyed it. Obviously, enjoyed watching my team have a great season. And it's just, till next season, you got to come back hungrier and you got to come back wanting to smack the fuck out of Bama now. So um, that's all that it
so
comes
so
down to.
my question to you and my question to the viewers out there, if you're tuning in or you're watching, feel free to comment your answer to this question. But whose season was more impressive in your eyes? Was it Bama's season this year or was it LSU's last year?
In my opinion, it's got to be Bama. Um, and it kind of, so to speak a little bit on like kind of how everybody was calling like the NBA championship like a Mickey Mouse ring, and I feel like in the same sense it's like that in the same sense. Not only was Bama so dominant in, basically what's considered the semis and the championship itself, but just having to go through a season like this where um, there's so much uncertainty of how far you're even going to get in the season, the mental, the toll that it takes on your mental to go through COVID on a daily basis for the average person. Um, I just imagine as a student athlete having to deal with those same pressures on kind of another level. Um, it's not easy. So I mean, I have to say this just for the simple fact of everything that kind of went on this year and how dominant they really were against even the top teams. So I gotta give that one to Bama.
Yeah, I agree in terms of everything off the field. It was definitely more challenging, especially when Bama plays in the SEC. I mean, LSU plays in the SEC too, but Bama had to go through the entire
Yes.
SEC, whether that was East or West this season, because it was an all SEC schedule. Um, Although I do think LSU had the better team, I feel like if they matched up, LSU would have won that matchup. And I think statistically they had the better season as well. I just think Bama had to deal with more challenges throughout the season, and they didn't really come close to losing. I mean, they probably had one game uh, where they probably, it looked like they were going to lose, but they pulled through and got to where they need to go, and they ultimately won the season, well, won the national championship. So they finished the season undefeated. So I would tend to agree with you on that one. I would just like to hear from the viewers or the people watching, what they have to say about that. Just because both teams were statistically great. So I mean, just from this game alone, I think the person who their draft stock rose the most. Like a lot of people will automatically assume I'm going to talk about Devonta Smith, but he only played half, and I think Mac Jones looked super impressive in that second half. Uh, and I think people were ranking him, I think, the fifth quarterback um, in this upcoming draft class. I think he's going to get picked in the first half of the first
Yeah.
round, especially with that performance that he pulled off yesterday. A lot of people aren't really talking about him, but the guy had Joe Burrow numbers from his national championship performance. So, and he was the number one pick.
Yeah.
So, it was a very impressive win. It sucks to see my guy Justin Fields go out like that, but it wasn't really his fault. So, we'll move on and talk about the wild card weekend. A lot of crazy stuff happened. I mean, the game that people expected to be the best game, which was the last game, was the worst game because that shit was a blowout. Corvette, that one, Juju. I mean, I said it. I mean, I had the Steelers winning that game, and I mean, Juju just brought bad juju on the Steelers because he talked so much crap. The Browns are the Browns,
Yeah.
and the Browns came out, and even with everything COVID related going on with that team, they seem to overcome it. And now Claypool's talking crap, saying it was a bad loss, but they're gonna get blown out next week anyway. I mean, granted, I think they're gonna lose because they're playing the Chiefs, but um,
Yeah,
why
you
say
can't
that?
really say
Just to give them,
after they just gave you the ass whooping of your season. It doesn't really make
yeah, and
sense.
it didn't. Just give them their cred, and I get their division rival, and just move
It
on.
seemed like
And
there was kind of a lot of animosity in this wild card weekend. Even in the Titans Ravens game, um, it was kind of weird because they're not generally two teams that have beef like that, especially considering they're not even in the same division. Um, but
yeah,
due to the last time they played and the Titans players, standing around on the Ravens logo and dancing on the Ravens logo, the Ravens kind of gave it back to them this game. And it's
my guy
yeah,
Lamar Jackson got his
and yeah,
first
he
win.
definitely
I
got
called
his
it.
first win. But yeah, there was a lot of animosity, which was kind of a surprise between the two teams. I wasn't really expecting
I
that,
like
but
it
it
though.
was it was definitely something that made the game a little bit that much more interesting. Um, but it was a fun wild card weekend. I almost thought I had the chance to go undefeated for wild card weekend. Looking at who I had picks for to win. After those first three
I think we
games.
both went four
Yeah,
and
after
two.
those first three games at least, and then after that it
Because
was a wild.
who you had the Titans and the Steelers winning,
Correct.
correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those were your two losses. My two losses were the Seahawks, who stunk it up, and the Steelers, who also stunk it up. But you talk about animosity with that Ravens game. I love
Yeah.
it, honestly, and it wasn't really much on the first time they played, but it was building off of it with the second time where they were standing on the logo. So then now, the Ravens kind of fed it back to them. And although I like both teams going into this game, I was really hoping the Ravens would win so that Lamar Jackson can overcome that headline of he can't win playoff
Yeah.
games and things like that, which didn't really make any sense because out of everyone in that rookie class in terms of quarterbacks, first round quarterbacks at that, he was the only one to make the playoffs all
Yeah.
3 seasons, and he won an MVP, unlike anyone else in that class. And then you look at Baker Mayfield; he makes the playoffs once, and they're celebrating, and it doesn't really make any sense how these headlines or they
Yeah, it's
shift,
true.
and it's just
I
weird to
mean,
me. And I guess it's the window of opportunity or the window of success for a white quarterback and a black quarterback. I don't want to bring race into it, but that's kind of where I'm
yeah.
viewing it.
No, I mean they definitely never really give Lamar Jackson the benefit of the doubt. I mean, even I said it. He hadn't won a playoff game. Um, and he was talking about having to beat the Chiefs and them being the kryptonite. I had mentioned saying he has to worry about winning a playoff game before he should worry about the Chiefs. But that was no slight on Lamar and on my part. It was just me saying that
Yeah,
he just literally hadn't won a playoff game. Um, I do think Lamar's a great quarterback. And I was really happy to see the Ravens win, although I didn't think they would win that game. I did pick the Titans. I did think that the Titans just were the more consistent team this entire season, and also coming in they were a little hotter. But I love to see that the Ravens not only they just came into this playoffs and they came ready. And we'll see how it goes and how far they can take it. But it was really good to see them just go out there, kind of cancel out that noise of Lamar can't win a playoff game, the Ravens aren't good, and just go out there and do what they had to do.
I agree. I agree. I mean, the two games I was looking forward to the most were really good games with the Ravens, Titans, and then the Bills, Colts. Bills, Colts came down to the wire, and honestly, the Colts lost that game because of the
Yeah,
smallest mistakes. I mean, they went for it on fourth down when they could have kicked a field goal that would have had the game tied. Um, Blankenship missed a field goal that could have either won them the game or tied the game. It
which
just came
was a
down to the wire,
surprise
and
because he's one of the better kickers this year. Especially, I believe he had
yeah,
he's one of the highest scorers in the league in terms of how many points they have. So,
yeah. So all these games were just very entertaining. Even the Nickelodeon
oh yeah,
game
with the slime.
was with all the shenanigans going on. Everyone seemed to complain when they heard about the game being on Nickelodeon, but while the game was going on or after the game, no one
Yeah,
really
that seemed to
complained
be
about
good.
it. I mean, yeah, everyone seemed to enjoy it, and I think moving forward, we're going to see a lot of that, whether it's on Nickelodeon again or it's on a different platform. I feel like they're going to kind of exaggerate some of these things, which could be pretty cool moving forward. Uh, but
Um,
I'm
yeah.
excited. I'm excited for these upcoming matchups. We're gonna see Bucks Saints Part 3. Um, is Brady gonna come out on top on this one? Who knows? Um, I don't have them moving past it. In the beginning of the season, I didn't think they were Super Bowl. Uh, they were capable of winning a Super Bowl with how they were constructed as a roster, and I'm gonna stand by that statement. I'm not. I don't. I said they weren't even gonna make it to the NFC Championship. Um, so I'm gonna stand by that statement. I have the Saints winning that one.
Um, this one's tough for me because it does look like the Buccaneers do got their offense kind of firing. Um, but it doesn't seem like the Bucks can get both sides of the ball going at the same time. And it's gonna be really tough for them to win a championship if they can't finally get them both on the same page. Because it seemed like when Brady wasn't firing, the defense was kind of carrying that team, and then when Brady starts, getting hot, it almost seems like the defense is letting up. As they get deeper in the playoffs, whether it be the Saints or even further. I feel like it's going to be tough for them to win games because that secondary is going to start getting exposed when you start facing higher tier offenses like the Saints and the Packers in the
Yep.
NFC or even the Chiefs in the AFC.
Yep.
Um, so we'll see how it goes. I think it'll be a close one. Um, I think I'm going to go with the Saints on this one, just as an immediate response. But I do think this game will be close.
And to speak of on the other matchups before we take a quick break to go into our second part of our show, we're gonna see a Jalen Ramsey Devontae Adams matchup. Will he get locked down, or will he lock Adams down, or up? I don't know. Will he lock
Jalen
him?
Ramsey,
Will he
Jalen
lock him
Ramsey's
down,
looked really good
or
this
will he
season.
ball? Or will he
He's looked
ball out?
really, really good. He looked.
I mean, Adams has
Oh,
looked good
they
too,
of
though.
course they both looked really good. I mean, I feel like Jalen Ramsey has kind of not that he ever was bad, but he's gotten back to that form of a lockdown corner, a guy that you trust against any receiver. Because for a little while it almost looked like it was hit or miss for a little bit, but he's back in that lockdown form, which is great to see. It's fun to see him go up against the best wide receivers in the game and just do what he does. You know,
So for me, I a lot of people have asked me who do I think wins that matchup, like Jalen Ramsey or Devontae Adams, and I'm a huge Devontae Adams fan. I'm a Jalen Ramsey fan as well, but I don't think he's gonna lock him down. But I also don't think Adams is gonna you know go out there and have north of 100 yards and shit on him either. I I think Ramsey not he won't shut him down, but I think he'll slow him
yeah,
down. And it's gonna take more from the other weapons on the Packers offense for them to win that game. Uh, but Adams is no scrub. That
yeah.
boy's a
Oh,
dog,
definitely.
and I'm looking forward to it.
I think it'll be a good matchup. I kind of feel the same way. It's hard when you're facing a guy like Devontae Adams, no matter who's covering him, for him to not get his. I think he will make some good plays, if not big plays for big yardage. It'll, I think he will make some crucial plays. Because he is one of Rodgers' favorite weapons, so I do think he will be important. I agree though. I don't think he'll have one of those 100, 150-yard games, something crazy on Jalen Ramsey, especially if Ramsey is on him every snap. Um, so that's another thing that we need to see to really, to really get the gist of what we think we're going to see in that matchup.
And then on the AFC side, we have the Chiefs, the reigning champions, versus the Browns. Um, Seems like it's gonna be a great game offensively. Defensively, it's gonna come down to which defense comes in and makes those crucial stops or gets those crucial turnovers. I have the Chiefs winning that game. I already mentioned it. I don't see the Browns winning, but won't say it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be a high scoring game, and I'll say the Chiefs win by 10.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be a blowout. Like our boy Chase Claypool said, that they're gonna get smacked. I don't think it'll be that bad. Um, However, I don't. The Chiefs will have to rely on their defense to make a few stops. Um, However, I don't think it'll be that crucial. I don't think it'll be that critical in a sense where it'll come down to one stop. I think it's hard for any offense to keep up with the Chiefs. Um, I do think the Browns have a really good offense. I just don't know that they'll be able to put up as much points as the Chiefs will. So I do agree. I think it'll be a shootout. I think it'll be a high scoring game. But ultimately, I think it'll be a few drives where the Browns just can't get it done. Because it's really hard to just keep up with that Chiefs offense. They could put up, 50. They could hang 50 points on anybody, if they really were on. So I won't sleep on the Browns though. Um, They obviously surprised me last week, but they've really just been surprising all season in general. So I got the Chiefs winning, but I do think it'll be a good game.
And the matchup that I'm excited for the most is the Bills and the Ravens. And the reason why I mentioned those were the two matchups that I was looking forward to last weekend.
Yeah,
But but the Bills, I don't know. They're turning me into a fan. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon because I'm riding with my Giants. But um, yeah, it's hard not to love this team. They're just so fun to watch, and they're just doing great things on the field. And I'm also rooting for Lamar Jackson. I
yeah.
want him to overcome the odds and these narratives that people keep putting on him. And so I've been saying I don't really see anyone beating the Bills outside of the Chiefs, and I'm gonna stick with that statement. However, I I won't be mad if we see a Lamar Jackson Patrick Mahomes AFC Championship. I'm not
I, I mean,
I won't be mad.
yeah, I personally would love to see that. But I agree. If you'd asked me last week what I thought a Bills Ravens matchup would have looked like, I would have heavily favored the Bills. I would have probably gone as far to even say like I thought the Bills would not blow them out, but win handedly. Where they were comfortable. But after the Ravens surprising me beating the Titans team that I was kind of really riding high on. I thought the Titans were really good. After seeing them, slow them down and beat them, I think this game will be really close. In my opinion, I think it'll be the closest matchup of the entire next round, especially considering I thought the Bills game and Colts game was a lot closer than I anticipated. Not to say that I thought the Colts were scrubs, but I did think that again. I thought the Bills would win handedly. Uh, for the simple fact that I didn't trust the Colts as much on the
Specifically
offensive
Philip
side of the ball,
Rivers.
specifically due to Philip Rivers. But with as close as that game was, only being a 3-point game, um, you know, I'm looking a lot more forward to this Ravens Bills matchup than I would have if you asked me last week. And I think it'll be a really close game. And I honestly, as good as Josh Allen has looked this season, I think it'll be low scoring. I don't think any team's gonna score more than 20 in this game.
Oh, that's interesting. I think it's gonna be high scoring just for the simple fact that the Bills defense just hasn't really been impressive at that.
Yeah,
I mean, I said about the Colts Bills game that it was going to come down to who controlled the line of scrimmage, and the
yep,
Colts controlled the line of scrimmage for majority, if not all of the entire game. And specifically, DeForest Buckner, he was making an impact. He was rattling Josh Allen in the pocket. So Josh Allen had a slow start. Uh,
yeah,
and I think it also may come down to the line of scrimmage again. Can the Ravens rattle Josh Allen in the pocket and to the point where he's not comfortable? I mean, they have the secondary to slow down or even stop Stephon Diggs. I don't think they'll stop him, but they have the enough playmakers on the defensive side of the ball to make it happen. So
yeah,
I think it's going to come down to the line of scrimmage on either side. Who's going to rattle the opposing quarterback uh, to give their offense an opportunity to take that lead and that jump. I'm just going to say the Ravens don't want to see themselves in a hole where they're down too much because their
no,
offense is not meant for a shootout, and
no,
and they want to control the clock. They want to run it and milk the clock and try to keep Josh Allen off the field. So I'm gonna ride with the Bills, but the Ravens have a a chance, a
yeah.
fighter's chance.
I'm gonna ride with the Bills too. Like I said, I think it's gonna be. I think it's honestly gonna be low scoring. Um, Considering obviously what you just said there. I mean, the Ravens offense isn't built for shootouts. They're going to be on the field. They're probably going to control the time of possession. Honestly, they'll probably have really long drives, and I think that's what's going to milk most of the clock out. Um, I'm not expecting anybody to score more than 20. I'm looking at like a 17-13 game, but I got the Bills too.
Alrighty, well that'll wrap up the first half of the show. We'll take a quick break and we'll be right back.
boy patient, just getting thinner than big razors. Since 9-6, been accustomed to hooligan behavior. Can call your Lord and Savior, he ain't even trying to save ya. Ain't call his phone in some years, asking for big favors. The reason why a lot of niggas die, whether it be hunger or you trying to test me in the guys. Never been a fan of school, you can miss me with the problems, but I still graduated, so I obviously solve them. 2-piece and a biscuit, I risk it if I got her. Principles what life's about, I knock you out about $1. Might as well refer to me as MVP of all the rhymers. Talking body after body, John Gracie, Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm a fucking amazing, a monster to say the least, too profitable. So I feel responsible to achieve everything that I once believed times 3, cause I overdo it. My music is more than music, it's how I'm surviving through it, nigga, Dom. Never been a fool, bitch, lately been on my time. Miss me with the bullshit, it's a cold world, be careful who you cool with. Claiming them your slimes till they slime you, typical shit.
We're back with more Balls Deep. We plan on starting with the travesty of Week 17 in the NFC East, specifically the Philadelphia Eagles. So this has been a huge storyline in sports, with Doug Peterson benching Jalen Hurts in the fourth quarter down by single digits. So it was a one possession game for Sudfeld, who, I don't know, they didn't really make any sense for the move. Although that week, I guess they were planning on incorporating him in the offense and getting him some reps, in that game, being that they didn't really have anything to fight for. But it was a tank job. It was just, let's just put it like
Clear and
that.
obvious,
It was
definitely.
It's clear and obvious that it was a tank job. Whether it was Doug Peterson's decision, I don't think it was. But regardless, he's getting the heat of it. He's getting the backlash, and the reason why is those players in the locker room don't care about the draft. They don't care about where you are selecting in the draft until it's draft season, and they want to know where their team's picking and who can they get. Until the season's over, they don't really care, and that's the problem. Doug Peterson has to answer to the locker room, regardless of whose decision that was. And the players didn't seem like they were a fan of the move. There was reports that people approached him, and there was almost an altercation on the sideline after that benching. Jalen Hurts didn't really seem happy on the sideline when the cameras were pointing at him after the move.
He seemed confused when I saw him, honestly.
Yeah, there's some. I guess the Sudfeld move was incorporated into the game plan, but not everyone was aware of it.
I mean,
So that's it came.
even Miles Sanders said he was like nobody was a fan of the move. So I mean, that tells you right
Yeah.
there. I mean, they were obviously all having conversations about it. A move like that alone, like you said, it really just it could lose you the locker room. And having how you always say being a head coach and really just being a leader of men, how you kind of always phrase it, a move like that really can hurt your ability to lead them. It hurts their it really just it makes them stop believing in the message that you're preaching, especially when you're going out there and just purposely willing to lose games just for a better draft pick. And I'll even go as far as saying, because I mentioned it to a friend of ours who is the Eagles fan. Shout out to Kenny. You guys might know him from the early episodes. He is one of our producers. So I said to him, even though he said this prior to the game even happening that he wanted this guy to get reps, I mean, that in a sense might have just been his cop out to say later on, I already said I was going to put him in the game. You know what I mean? So in a way, it's more like him kind of covering his ass later on, and in the sense that, I had previously mentioned I was putting this player in the game, so you guys can't really be surprised by the move, but whatever. Obviously, nobody really in the NFL was a fan of it. The Eagles fans really seem to be the only ones who were happy about it, knowing that they got a higher draft pick. But clearly, the players weren't, and the management and owners weren't satisfied. Although, like you said, there has been a lot of talk about you know, it not being his, fault or even his idea, but he is the
Yeah.
fall guy for it. So
And my thing is too is so I I mentioned this to a cousin, well, one of my cousins who happens to be an Eagles fan. Because he was saying, like, I don't understand why you Giants fans are so mad about the situation. I told him I'm not mad. Like, it's our fault that, and the reason why we're
yeah,
not in the
with no
playoffs.
games,
I'm not mad.
100%.
Yeah, we're 6-10. Like Logan Ryan said, we have no right to talk. If we handled our business, we wouldn't be in that situation to depend on another team to win the game.
100%.
So the Eagles did not owe the Giants anything. It was just the simple fact, like Joe Judge said. Even a lot of people are misconstruing what he said because the media is only feeding people the part where he was bashing Doug Peterson's decision of saying, as long as I'm the Giant head coach, nothing like that will
Yeah.
happen, and things like that. I'm, paraphrasing here, but that's ultimately what he said. But that's what the media is feeding us. Before that, he said he took responsibility for only getting 6 wins in the season and basically saying it's our fault that we didn't make the playoffs. But he was just saying with this sort of season with COVID and everything like that, these players, these coaches have sacrificed way too much for you to go out there and just lie down for the opposing team. You play 60 minutes of football. If you win, you win. If you lose, you lose. That's it. And the only issue I had with the decision was if they were down 14 and he takes Jalen Hurts out the game, I understand. But it's in reach. The game is a one possession game. And Jalen Hurts is a rookie quarterback at that. Like, these reps can help him moving forward.
Especially,
Granted, yes. Granted, if they win that game and he's in the game and he drives them down the field and win the game, that gives him the confidence going into his sophomore season that will only be beneficial to him and that offense and that team with chemistry and things like that. If he plays and they lose, then management or whoever wanted this to happen get what they wanted. They lost.
yeah,
So be it. They benched most of their prime players to begin with, like Miles Sanders, Fletcher Cox. A lot of them were on the injury report as out to start the game, which kind of was clear and obvious that they were tanking. So Giants fans should have expected that long before.
yeah,
But my issue is the game was just in reach. You kind of got to just ride with that and just go with it. And I get you wanted to get Suffield some reps, but in that situation, you can't do it. I guess the only bad thing that could have happened was an injury to Jalen Hurts, which is major because he's their future.
yeah.
But it ultimately led to what we seen yesterday. Doug Peterson he got fired.
100%.
Simple as that.
I mean,
And it sucks that he has to be the fall guy because I don't think it was his decision, and it pisses me off even more, even though I'm a Giants fan, that Doug Peterson took the fall for it, and Howie Roseman is still sitting there in his office, and he's like nothing ever happened. Like a lot of this chaos that's going on in Philly is his fault, and believe it or not, he is on the hot seat now. And I mentioned before that Peterson might have lost the locker room because of this decision, and I spoke with this to Denzel and Isaiah, who both were on the show before, and they told me I was wrong. That there's no way they lost the locker room. That's going a little too far, but the ownership wouldn't have made this decision to move on if he didn't,
if the feeling
or
wasn't
he.
mutual, I agree.
So I don't think that the reason why he was fired was just be strictly off this decision. I think it played a part in why he was fired. The whole Wentz situation, how that debacle, I think that played a part. But also the fact that Jim Schwartz is moving on, and he had to have a plan in place for his coordinator positions. I don't think he had a plan in place that put ownership in a position where they're confident in what he had moving forward. So that's kind of why they decided to go in their separate ways, go their separate ways. I think Howie Roseman, this chaos starts with him, and their salary cap situation is terrible because of what he has done, and he hasn't set up the team for success at all. I mean, Wentz hasn't really had any weapons on the offensive end, so if you get rid of Wentz, Now Hurts doesn't really have that much weapons because Hurts is out the door because he's a free agent. Um, you chose JJ Arcega-Whiteside over DK Metcalf, and then you go this season, this draft, you went Jalen Rieger over Justin Jefferson. Like Justin Jefferson fell in your lap, and you went, you know, a different direction. And now, what are you gonna do this upcoming draft? You have the sixth pick. Like you wouldn't, it wouldn't be bad to pick one of these top receivers, but you're gonna pick a receiver in the first round again. Like it doesn't really make any sense.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I spoke to a few people about it as well. More specifically Isaiah, who was saying, if I'm on that team and us losing stops a division opponent from, getting to the playoffs and us getting a better draft pick, I'd do that too. Which I get it, but in the same breath, winning the game stops a division opponent from getting to the playoffs. Doesn't get you the draft pick, but it's similar to exactly what J.J. Watt said. They don't give a shit about that. These guys play football because they love football. They get paid millions of dollars to play a game and go out there and give it their all because it's literally their job. That's what they get paid to do. So, yeah, you might have a different perspective, but that's your perspective as a fan. That's why Philly fans are happy about it. And that's why the players and the coaches aren't, because we have different perspectives. They're in there doing their job and they're playing that game. They're getting paid money to do it. Their outlook on this is completely different than ours. And it was clear, just in the sense that so many players were speaking out about it and fights on the sidelines. That's clear enough to tell me that they lost the locker room, and specifically Doug Peterson. And you can deny it all you want, but he definitely did. And it definitely played a part in his firing. Obviously, it's been a few down years for Philly. So it was something that, he's probably going to be in the hot seat in the foreseen future, say next season if they had another bad year. But I definitely think this whole debacle played the heaviest part in his firing. And I think that it only sped up the process of it. So.
And even if he did return, like Joe Judge speaking out on the whole situation, whether people feel like he was bashing the Eagles, I think that helps the Giants moving forward into the offseason just because now players, like you said, they have a different perspective on it. They want to go out there and win at all costs regardless of the season, how the season is panning out and everything like that. So if I'm a free agent, you want to play for someone like Joe Judge, who he said like that's never going to happen as long as he's in charge of the New York Giants. Whereas Doug Peterson, if he returned, who says like free agents wanted to go to Philly after that situation? And although I think he will get another opportunity, whether that be with the Jets because their GM came from Philly and they have a really good relationship, or the fact that Bieniemy is going to be gone, most likely, and get with a head coaching gig. Maybe he returns to KC as their offensive coordinator. He's going to get an opportunity somewhere, as he should, because he's not a bad coach. He's a good coach. Yeah. Like I said, I don't think this was his decision, but he has to take the blow for it. And it just sucks that it was only him and not just him and Roseman getting the backlash on the whole situation.
I agree. And I mean, I even saw already that the Jets were interested in Doug Peterson. So I don't think he'll have an issue finding a job. But again, these players literally are playing for their career, to put food on the table, and that's where that different perspective comes. So there's no way you can deny that he didn't lose that locker room.
I mean, and the thing is, they went from being the 9th pick to the 6th pick with that loss. But who's to say they couldn't have got that if they just played their starters?
Yeah.
But moving from that and shifting over to our fandom as Giants fans, we're going to talk about the Giants and like their 2020 season and what we expect moving forward. But to kind of bounce off of what we just were talking about, like I'm confident moving forward. I think 2020, even though we didn't make the playoffs and we finished 6-10, I am looking at it as a success. And for the simple fact that we've seen the promise that Coach Judge and his staff bring to this team. I feel more confident after one season with Joe Judge than I do, or than I did when Pat Shermer was the head coach, or even Ben McAdoo.
Yeah.
Even though Ben McAdoo brought us to the playoffs his first season, um, I'm just more confident in the direction of this team, and I think I'm looking at it as a success because we've seen the development of these players underneath the staff, from beginning to end. Nick Gates, he was playing center for the first time in his career, and he ended the season as one of our best offensive linemen. You've seen the change in Andrew Thomas. You've seen Xavier McKinney towards the end of the season when he got to play and got his feet under him. Um, a lot of the rookies that we had, like Darnay Holmes, we found a slot corner, a future for the future. Julian Love now showed promise in the last couple of weeks of what he could be as cornerback too, if we give him the opportunity. We got Logan Ryan, Blake Martinez, Bradbury. I think
Not so much. We
this,
still haven't even seen Sam Beal take a snap
yes.
due to the fact
So
that he was injured and then he opted out.
so this team to me is showing promise. We're showing that we're on the up and up. And although we didn't win the division, it was clear and obvious that we were the best team in the division. Yes, we didn't get the playoff spot, but we should have went 6-0 in terms of our divisional games if it wasn't for botching two of the games.
Yeah.
One being the game against Philly with the Evan Ingram drop, and then the other one, the game being that the game in which Dak got hurt and Andy Dalton came in and won the game. Giants should have won that game. They should have won 6-0 in the division. Should they have closed out games like they should have. But I think they're gonna learn from their mistakes moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I I did have higher hopes than most Giants fans or NFL fans in general for the Giants this season. I did expect them to do better because I was saying from the beginning of the season that I did think we had a lot of talented people, a lot of talented players. I believed in the message that Joe Judge was sending. Clearly, the players did too, because they went in week in and week out, and just really played for him, tried to win. Um, but with that being said, having higher hopes and kind of not doing as well as I expected, because I was hoping for a better record than 6-10. However, I do have high hopes because they proved me right in a sense. From the beginning of the season, I was saying that I thought this team was better than a lot of people gave them credit, and they really did show that they were. 6-10. When you look at the record of 6-10, you can't really see that. But when you watch the games every week and you're seeing what these players are doing, a few plays here and there, the guys we had out in injury, I mean, just how young certain guys are and the mistakes that they were making, that with a little bit more reps and a few more years of experience, they can change. I mean, that changes this team from a 6-10 team to really a 10-win, 11-win team, because with how close some games were, especially against really good teams, more specifically the Buccaneers, who we looked really good against. Um, you know, that, and even beating the Seattle Seahawks, who obviously were kind of looked like a shell of himself at some point, but it's still an impressive win. Um,
I mean, Patrick Graham.
yeah,
You could say Patrick Graham exposed them,
Def-
and after that they never looked the
yeah.
same.
So in that sense, this team is 100% better than 6-10. Um, no excuses here. You know what I mean? Like, it's a very young team, so there were some mistakes that lost us some games. There were some players that we didn't have this season that could have made a difference. More specifically, one of the better running backs in the league, Saquon Barkley. But this team definitely left me with some high hopes for the future. I can see, that we're a good amount of pieces away from really contending, but not as far out of the realm of possibility that it almost seems like people were kind of putting us at. So I was very happy with the season and how it transpired. Although, week in and week out, you kind of talk shit about your own team and how they're losing games. But that's just how it is to be a fan. But ultimately, I mean, I was left very happy with the way this whole entire season planned out. And just to be able to, say that we had a shot at the playoffs in the last week of the season, which is something that a lot of people before the season wouldn't have given us, you know, wouldn't have, even thought of that. Obviously, the division was trash, so that also has something to do with it. But like I said, nobody would have even said we had a shot this late in the season. A lot of people would have thought by now we probably would have been eliminated, and we weren't. Um, so I think we have a lot to look forward to as Giants fans.
And my next question, or you can say my last questions, is well, yeah, my last questions are like, what's next
Yeah.
for the Giants? Like, there's a there's a lot of glaring needs that they need this upcoming offseason to improve for next season, and get a 10-6, 9-7 record moving forward, or even better. Um, so like, what needs to be done before the start of the 2021 season? Because before you start, there's rumors saying that the Giants are the favorite for this HBO show. I forget what it's called.
Hard Knocks.
Hard
Oh
Knocks.
wow, that's
They're the favorite for Hard Knocks. So if it's true and they end up being the pick, they got to put a good show on. So I hope they make some good moves.
yeah, no, definitely. Um, so there's a few things. In my opinion, the biggest thing for the Giants right now is just having the time. Like I said, very, very, very young team. That I think with a few more years of experience with some guys, just a couple more reps, like there are guys that are on the verge of being difference makers. I think we have plenty of guys on this roster. Um, Aside from that, there are plenty of glaring needs. A wide receiver one is one of them. Obviously, we were hoping for Devontae Smith, with him winning the Heisman and having the game that he did yesterday and in the semifinals. It's looking a lot less likely that he falls to 11, um, but obviously that would be amazing. Or even, I mean, this receiver class is deep, so even if we didn't go receiver with our first pick, there will be receivers down the road or down the line. So wide receiver is one of them. O lineman, we do need another middle linebacker, um, another corner two if Love doesn't work out, or even Sam Beal. So there are definitely some glaring needs for the team, um, that hopefully we can address in free agency and in the draft. But that's really just it, in my opinion, for what's next and for what we need to do to take ourselves from 6-10 to 10-6 or 11-5. Is just go after those needs, and just let your young players develop. I think we have the perfect coaching staff right now. This is as happy as I've been as a Giants fan in terms of who we have as a coach, because honestly, the last time I was happy with the staff that my team employed, it was when Coughlin was there. It was a team. It was a coach that I feel like players really believed in that message. And Joe Judge is the first person to come along in the last few years for the Giants that I've actually, as a fan, have believed what he was preaching. And he really went and put a product on the field that week in and week out we could be proud of. And like I said, and that's what he said he would do. And like I said, obviously week in and week out you talk junk because your team loses. You want them to win. But looking at bigger picture, um, what he made this team into, at least currently, compared to what they were, um, they look like they could be a really, really good football team down the line. Uh, but like I said, Patrick Graham, such a great defensive coordinator. Joe Judge has been a great head coach. I think if we can maybe get rid of Jason Garrett and go a different route in terms of offensive coordinator, just because um, I feel like our team is way too predictable offensively. Um, but aside from that, I'm just really happy with this coaching staff. Um, yeah, that's really all the things that I feel like the Giants need to do is just let these great coaches develop this talent and keep filling up those needs.
Yeah, for sure. I agree that this team needs time. Um, the fact that there was no preseason and these young players couldn't get those reps, I think hurt us
Hmm.
because, as you've seen in those first few weeks in the season, we were still trying to figure out our identity. These players were still adjusting to the big leagues, and I think as the season went on, a lot of those players got better. So I think this offseason, if these players, take their skill and their job seriously, they'll go out and train and look to improve. As a Giants fan, I'm not happy with Gettleman, and there's reason for it. Yes, he has done some good, and I'm gonna give him credit for it when it's due. Like he went out and got Logan Ryan, Blake Martinez, James Bradbury. Yes, he traded for Leonard Williams, which I still think that was a bad move, even though he blew up this season. I just think trading away that draft capital is what hurt us because we could have signed him in free agency, but I guess we just secured him to stay in house. But the Giants seem to be committed to him for at least one more season. Him and Joe Judge seem to be on the same page, so I'm not too mad about it. This past draft class is probably his best draft class in terms of drafting. My only issue is there's a lot of things on my list, but I'll just summarize it like this. His first year with the Giants, we were the second pick. We ended up going with Saquon Barkley. Who was the first pick in that draft? It was the Browns. Who was the third pick in that draft? It was the Colts. And they traded back to 6 with the Jets. So look at those two teams as a prime example then, and then look at them now. They're both 11-win teams, and they're in the playoffs. And the Giants, where are they? They're still a 6-win team, and we're still on the up and up, yes, but we're not where we should be. And I think a lot of that, and the big difference between the two is that they had an abundance of draft capital, which the Giants did not because Joe Judge was trading this draft capital away. Whether it would be for...
Said Joe Judge was trading it away?
No, Dave Gettleman. Dave Gettleman was trading it away. So if I said Joe Judge, I apologize.
Yeah.
But Dave Gettleman went and was trading that draft capital away, and we could have used it. Like whether it would be for Leonard Williams or when he traded up for DeAndre Baker. I was a fan of the trade because I thought he was a great prospect. I mean, it's an anomaly. You can't really, expect that to happen with a player. But then he also went and drafted Sam Beal in a supplemental draft in the 3rd round. And a lot of people only claimed him in the 4th round in that draft, or 4th round pick. So he seems to be high on trading away picks instead of trading back or trading for picks. And also he falls in love with these prospects. There's a time where he infamously referred to Saquon Barkley as having been touched by like the hand of God. And and that's why he had to pick him number 2 instead of trading back with the Jets and allowing them to get who they want and vice versa. But then he also fell in love with Daniel Jones. Like he told the Giants beat reporter, like I fell in full bloom love with Daniel Jones. And a lot of scouts had him as a late 1st round, early 2nd round pick, and we picked him at 6, which was a reach. But moving forward with Dave Gettleman, it is what it is. I agree that we do need a number 1 receiver. I think that's our number 1 thing we need to focus on in the draft, but also in free agency. I want Allen Robinson, but there's also other receivers out there that I think we should get. Like Kenny Golladay would be a nice option. Chris Godwin would be a nice option. I do not want Corey Davis because Corey Davis, yes, he had a big season. I don't think he's a receiver 1 because before A.J. Brown was there, he wasn't performing to the level that in which he was drafted at. So I think he's a receiver 2. And there's also I'm trying to think of someone else. There's Curtis Samuel, who's versatile. He comes from Carolina. Gettleman drafted him. I wouldn't be mad at that, but he's not a receiver 1 either. So I'm looking at those 3 receivers, and there's also the deep draft. But the Giants only really have depth at safety and interior defensive lineman. And we need depth at every position. But the ones we need to emphasize on our receivers, our edge rushers, and I'd say linebacker. We need some impactful players on the second level outside of Blake Martinez.
Yeah.
Cornerback 2,
Especially in coverage.
yes. Cornerback 2, I feel like with Sam Beal returning, Julian Love showing promise, we can still draft a cornerback 2, but it doesn't have to be in the first round. We can focus on other needs. But I feel like the best signing we already did, and that's secure Patrick Graham for at least one more season, bring that continuity to next season, and Joe Judge even said like he's happy that he's returning, and
Yeah.
yes, he knows that he's going to get opportunities in the future, whether that be after next season, but it was very important to him and everyone else to bring him back for next season. But my last thing is, I hope to God Jason Garrett goes, forces our hand to move forward and kind of get a modern day scheme like a Pep Hamilton with what he did with the Chargers and Justin Herbert, or just in a new direction. I feel like we need to be forced to it. And I have a lot of stats here that I want to read to you really quick because we need some playmakers and we need a new scheme.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna read it off. The Giants finished 2020 as the 31st in scoring and 20 plus yard plays, ahead of only the Jets, which is horrendous. The Giants were 8th in drop passes and 25th in passing attempts. So we weren't really passing the ball. But when we were one of the worst at it. And it's so I think Pro Football Focus put out a sheet of the most impactful drops, like the receivers who had the most impactful drops. Guess who was number one? Evan Ingram.
It's probably number 1 through fucking 10, honestly.
The crazy thing is, in terms of impactful drops, I think he was first with 11. I think the next person had like 6. And
I thought they were ranking the most impactful drops. I would have said he would have had a few of them on that list.
So another Giants receiver made that list as well. He was more on the bottom of the list, but Darius Slayton, he made the list, who didn't really make that jump that we were expecting, but I think it was more because of schematics. But it was projected that Evan Ingram's drops costed the Giants 35 points, and Slayton's drops cost them roughly 14 points. That just means they lost us some games that we could have used in terms of making the playoffs. But Garrett's system just isn't a good fit for Daniel Jones. When Mara, was advocating for him, it was clear as day that it was more for Saquon Barkley, and we're going to be a run-first offense. But Daniel Jones, he didn't make the leap that we were expecting because under Shermer, he racked up a 24-12 touchdown to interception ratio his rookie season, and it was a heavy dosage of 11 personnel and shotgun formation, mesh concepts to defeat man and zone coverages. And it was easier for him to read the field because, it was half-field, high-low reads, and it was allowing, vertical routes to come open for, Jones to process a lot faster. And Garrett's system doesn't really do that. It's more heavy personnel. He has a lot of people on the offensive line. He has an H-back in his formation. So it's just more fit for the run game. And not really it's not really meant for Daniel Jones. So
I also think Garrett, and this is just to give him the benefit of the doubt, I did say that I also do think that we should get rid of him because I do. But to give him the benefit of the doubt, I think he saw what we see, and that's in the sense that we had to rely heavily on our run game because it was what was working, and our passing game, we just didn't have that guy. And I think that's really the biggest issue with the Giants offensively right now, and that's why it makes wide receiver the most important glaring need, is because we have a bunch of wide receiver twos on our team. Talented players that would be really good, but they can't be wide receiver ones. It's, in my opinion, similar to what we've seen with Juju. Everybody loved Juju. He was great. As soon as AB was gone, where is Juju?
He's only had one 100-yard game since AB left.
Yeah, I agree.
And he's a free agent too, and I want to stay away from him.
I do. I hope we do. And that's the same in the sense where now we kind of have an offense just full of wide receiver twos. Darius Slayton didn't make that jump like we expected him to. Great talent, but he can't be a wide receiver one. Golden Tate, was really never a wide receiver one, or at least not for a while. So that's not what we brought him in for. He's been great when he plays, but he's not the wide receiver one guy that we need. Sterling Shepard was never a wide receiver one since we drafted him, really. So that's really, I feel like, the toughest part is the Giants don't have a wide receiver one, and they don't have a big body receiver either. A guy that can stretch the field, a guy that's fast, a guy that can grab jump balls. Um, the Giants just don't have that guy. And so I feel like that's really obviously the most important need that we have. And in a sense,
Yeah.
maybe what Jason Garrett would need to want to open that offense up a little bit more. So
I
if
mean,
he stays, we'll get to see.
I give him the benefit of the doubt at the fact that our star player was hurt, and that's really what the offense was built around. However, I can see where you're saying like we didn't really have the weapons to help him, but the offense, like you said, was predictable. It was a
Yeah,
lot of run, pass, run, pass, and that led to a lot of third and longs where it hurt us. Like
yeah,
a lot of these obvious rundowns, you need to pass. And why? Because it's the most effective. It's the easiest way to move down the field. It's a way to catch these defenses off guard.
yeah.
Like you have to step out of your comfort zone. And I feel like a lot of the reason why Darius Slayton wasn't making the jump that we needed is due to schematics. It
Yeah.
was a lot of dink and dunk, slant routes type thing. Like he wasn't. There wasn't really a lot of throws down the field
Yeah.
to make that impact. Like Darius Slayton, his rookie season, him and Daniel Jones were on the same page when they were throwing down the field. Darius Slayton is a burner. He's been burning corners left and right, whether that was last season or this season. We just don't get him the ball.
Well,
A lot of that has to do with schematics.
I agree, and and that's what I'm saying. I mean, there are two things can be true, and I do think that is the case here. I don't think Jason Garrett is the right offensive coordinator. However, to speak a little bit on the stats that you mentioned, it is harder to want to go out there and throw the ball early and often when you have two receivers on the list of most crucial drop passes. You know what I mean? So I
I
feel
mean,
like it's tough, and honestly, that's really why I just think that's the important need right there is wide receiver because I think that right there uh, can really turn this whole offensive around. Um, Aside from O line, I think that's our biggest need on offense, and then at that point, you could really just focus on bolstering down on your defense.
I think our biggest need on offense is our receiver. I think our offense showed
Yeah,
promise moving forward. I think we could use depth at our offensive line, and obviously taking that step in the right direction.
well, that's what I'm saying. Wide
Yeah.
receiver is our most glaring need on offense,
Okay.
other than obviously needing offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, whether he stays or whether he goes, Giants need to make that leap of improvement in order to, be a team of at least 9 wins. Uh, but that's all we have for you guys for today. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. Uh, we enjoyed talking about our Giants and a lot of, well, you didn't enjoy talking about your Ohio State Buckeyes, but we talked about those.
I
We talked
always
about the
enjoy talking
playoffs.
about my Ohio State Buckeyes. All right.
And we talked about the shenanigans that's going on in Philly. But comment. We would love to hear what you guys have to say about any topic that we covered, or even topics that you would like us to cover. Feel free to let us know. We want to interact with you guys. Like we put up a poll talking about Doug Peterson. Will he be the head coach of the Eagles the start of next season? A lot of you guys said yes, and a day later, that man was fired. And
Good timing.
so it's perfect timing. And it's just things like that. We enjoy, getting your point of view. So let us know. Feel free to comment and follow, and subscribe if you guys didn't already. Tune into our guys at the Expansion Pack podcast. I'm gonna, well, I plugged them in the ad break. So just if you guys enjoyed that content, go watch their streams. And if not, and you would just want to receive gaming content, go tune in. But that's all we have for you guys today. Tune in on Thursday where we're gonna have some more content. We'll talk about some baseball. We haven't talked about that in a while, but a lot has been going on in the MLB. So stay tuned, and until next time.
You're talking about balls deep. I'm talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love. I'm talking about balls deep. My boy's talking about balls deep. We're talking about balls deep in love.